and welcome back to another episode of Underdog Podcast. Once again, like always, hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed time with your family and friends, stuff like that. I sure as did, and had a good time and stuff. Took a couple of days off, like 2, 3 days off. I usually don't do the podcast on the weekend, anyways, but I usually try to work and do some other stuff. But took the weekend off. Kids had a great time on spring break, doing things with their mothers, so that's always good. Try to be positive as possible, right? Positivity, positivity. A lot of topics that I can cover, but this is something I wanted to talk about on that since I didn't do Friday's episode. But I'm gonna tie it into current events in today's American culture, whatever you want to call it. So I see that obviously I put it in there. Today's topic title is toxic people. Now I know what you're thinking: toxic people in your own personal lives and stuff like that. Yeah, it's obviously gonna talk about that and touch on that. But I'm gonna show you something how toxic people are that term in itself, how all of it's kind of by design, and you can easily create a group of so-called toxic people without them even realizing that they are toxic themselves. Because really, when we're talking about toxic people, we're talking about people that are overall just generally negative and want to spread their negativity. But someone can be a negative person and not even realize it. With a constant nagging or complaining, or you law of attraction, you bring that negativity towards you every time you project it out into the universe. So understand how when we talk about race or sexual orientation, identity politics, I constantly explain why I don't like those labels, because it's psychological warfare. The creation of those labels are by design, and they're used to divide us among the people, among the general population. Because the best way to control a population of people is by controlling them and distracting them, rather, is by distracting them. So if you don't have, if you don't, if I want to be able to control millions of people, the best way to control them is for them to realize, is for them to not realize that I am controlling them. How do I do this? I keep them distracted. What do you do to distract them? Well, you provide them with entertainment, different things. All right. Well, that's usually not good enough. But what else can you do? What's the best thing? Negativity. Because when something is negative in your realm, in your reality, you tend to gravitate towards that negativity because you are perceiving that negativity. Therefore, you will attract that negativity. If you feel it inside you, the universe will bring it to you. If you project it outwards, the universe will still bring it back to you. So when we talk about political ideologies, or wherever anybody wants to call it, you know, universal law of polarity, there's always two sides. But no one realizes that there's always a third option in the middle. Because what you're really looking for in your lifetime, in your journey of your human experience, is more or less that balance. I probably shouldn't say it like that, more or less. But what we're really talking about is you need to have balance. Understand something. Logic and critical thinking is not really it doesn't necessarily go along with human beings. We are emotional, sentient beings, and that's usually tends to be where we lead with, as far as our thought process. We lead with our emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. What we need to do as far as human beings is evolve to the point where we're no longer focusing just solely on our emotions, that we're also critical thinking. We're also using the logical side of our brains, but obviously not too logical, because we don't want to forget that we are humans. So we don't want to become empathetic and insensitive to others around us. So I posted on, I think, Twitter and Gab over the weekend, talking about what's that guy's name? Little Nas X. And there's a video that he put out where the symbolism, the occultic symbolism, is not even hidden. It's just boom, right in your face. Which is nothing wrong with that either, right? Do what you want to do. My thing is, Lil Nas X is literally targeted. His audience is kids, not was kids, not oh, he's a Disney star or something like that, goes away for a few years, comes back, and he's showing off his adult side. No, no, no. This guy literally put out a children's book, and when I say children's book, literally children's book, and that's from his own Twitter page. He put out a children's book. So if you're gonna put out a children's book, and then you turn around and you make a music video where you sliding down a pole, literal sliding down a pole with heels on and stuff, in a provocative outfit, a provocative attire, and then you do a give a lap dance to Satan himself, or Satan herself, or Satan itself, whatever, and then you seduce Satan, and then you snap Satan's neck, and then as also after you kind of release this music video, you also put out a shoe that has literally actual human blood at the bottom of the heel. And see, we can go in talking about the symbolism, the Satanism, obviously, the occultic messages, all that stuff that leads into pedophilia, because these people practice pedophilia, especially when we're talking about the music industry. Talked about it plenty of times before. Do your research, go watch the Out of the Shadows documentary. You can find it somewhere on YouTube. If you can't, I'm pretty sure it's probably on BitChute or Rumble or something like that. Understand that there's a group of people that really want to do these different things, and what they really care about is the sexualization of children. Like I said, like when you're talking about all these sexual orientations, movements, and stuff like that, it's slowly being pushed towards kids because that is the ultimate goal, to sexualize and influence young children, because we're knocking on the door of accepting pedophilia. But no one knows that because we're all leading with our emotions. Now, see, this is how they use toxic people, because no one's paying attention to, hey, this is actually being pushed towards kids. And this is a guy who makes music and markets things towards kids and then makes a music video like that. You telling me a kid who's reading Lil Nas X book, maybe listening to Lil Nas X song on Roblox or Fortnite, and next thing you know, they're like, oh, they're looking at his videos on YouTube because they want to hear more music about him. And parents are already like, oh, well, it's no big deal because it's Lil Nas X. He makes songs for kids. And next thing you know, some little kid is right now around the world is looking up Lil Nas X and then sees this music video and is like, oh, wow. And at the same time, like, well, there's Lil Nas X. I mean, he made Old Time Road. He's for kids. He just put out a kid's children's book. It's for kids. Obviously, that also falls on the parent as well, but you kind of get where I'm going at. Here's the thing, though. I know it seems like I'm kind of over the place, but I'm bringing it back together. Here's the thing. You won't really notice this unless you calm down and really look at this all objectively and understand that there seems to be some type of agenda where this is all done by design. Because you've seen it with like a Miley Cyrus or hell, go back to Britney Spears in the 90s, stuff like that. They, they, they appeal to kids first, and at the same time, those kids still follow those celebrities, those artists, those musicians, or whatever. But when they turn more adult nature and more adult in their theme and their music and stuff like that, well, you still have a bunch of kids still following that stuff. So now these kids are becoming influenced by it. Well, once again, this still falls on the parent as well. But what I'm trying to explain is the overall architect, the design of this, of all this that's going on. That's why I don't like trends, because trends are not organic. They're manufactured. They're manufactured by mainstream media and these huge corporations in association with the United States government. It's all mind control. That's why I talked about the project MK Ultra and mind control, because it's literally all that is going on. I guess we have to do an episode breakdown of Operation Mockingbird as well. I don't think I really went too deep on that either. But all these things are influencing stuff. But because there's so much toxic people around, all we hear is a negativity. So when Lil Nas X makes something like that, this is once again how they take labels and stuff and weaponize it, and this is by design. Because Lil Nas X is one, same sex, homosexual, guess what? Now, if you say anything about him criticizing him for this satanic video and being pushed towards kids, now you're homophobic. Even though that's not your argument because you don't care. Because someone like me, I don't care what you are. I've said this millions of times. You can be wherever you want to be. I might not agree with it, but that's not my problem. That's not my life choice. But at the same time, if I say something like that, then I'm viewed as homophobic. Because I'm black, no one says anything. But if I'm white and I say something, then guess what? Because Lil Nas X is black or whatever, now all of a sudden if you say something criticizing, still talking about satanic nature, talking about agendas being pushed towards children, you'll be labeled as racist. And the second you're labeled as racist or homophobic or transphobic, wherever these labels they want to associate with, now you're toxic. Although those are not actual toxic people. But if you push someone enough, guess what they will become? Toxic, because they keep receiving negative things. All of a sudden, they will begin to perceive a negative reality. It's all about the flow of energy. When I say these people behind the scenes are pulling the strings, when I say that they know exactly what they're doing, they know how we think, they know how human beings react logically. They understand the mind. They understand our emotions better than we do ourselves. And that's kind of scary when you think about it, because how can you have something like this going on and people can sit here and not really recognize what's going on? It's because we've been conditioned, programmed to have an emotional reaction to something. Like I said, Lil Nas X, he makes something like this, and you get some people come out that are negative, that are toxic. They could be Christians. It doesn't matter. You can still be a negative Christian, which seems really hypocritical. But guess what? That's what it is, because there's a lot of hypocritical people. But you can be saying you're a Christian and stuff like that, and you want to say you follow all the principles or whatever, not whatever the Ten Commandments, the New Testament, the Bible, and you follow Jesus Christ. But you see something like what Lil Nas X is doing, and then see that creates divisiveness, because they could be talking about the satanic nature, but not necessarily talking about that person being homosexual. But guess what? Who's going to come out first? It's usually those toxic people, those people who are all emotions. So you can have a Christian person who is more or less emotional leading as opposed to logical leaning, or being a balance of emotions and logic. So now you have that creation of toxicity, because now you have this image put out there of Lil Nas X. Oh, now he's making this music video because of these toxic Christians, these people like this, and it's all allegory. It's all just a thing. It's just art designed to piss people off, because that's him saying he could be what he want to be, and Christians are saying, no, you can't be homosexual because you're going to go to hell. You see, everyone gets thrown off from the main real reason of what's going on. And that's, once again, leading back to the influence of children through mainstream media, and the influence of people around slowly getting everyone to accept pedophilia, because no one talks about it. We throw it out there, but we don't really talk about the pedophilia nature of people in the music industry, people in business, people, these huge corporations, people in government, your politicians. We don't talk about it. I mean, Epstein, flight logs. I mean, a lot of people have went to that island, bro, but no one's really talking about it, man. And people touch on it, but because these things always end up being surrounded by people of toxicity, guess what? It deflects from the actual thing that's going on. So you take a case like Lil Nas X making this video, I can sit here and really critical thinking and see the design and the plan going on, as opposed to being caught up in emotions and becoming a toxic individual. They are literally creating toxic people by flushing us with nothing but negative images or divisive images, and thus people become divisive. What happens? They become emotional. After a while, they get so emotional where they lose control of their emotions. Now they're angry, and now all you have done is get people more susceptible to negative energy, which is funny because that's also what Satanism, well, not Satanism, it's also what the occult, as far as the music industry, Hollywood and stuff, they push a type of satanic occult thing that is more on negativity, regardless of what they want to say. because the things they're talking about doing and stuff always ends up involving kids. And to me, you can do what you want to do, but once you start involving kids, that's a little disturbing to me because kids are learning themselves. Think about it, when you're a kid, you're so happy and excited to be in this world and you're so great and you feel so alive. And then as you get older, it kind of gets sucks out of you because you also realize that everybody around you is kind of lying about shit too. But the pay attention to when you're on social media, right? Because this is how much we focus on toxic people. Toxic people are extreme minority of the population or overall population, yet we focus on the negative toxic people throughout human history. Anytime we talk about slavery or racism or one country invading another country, imperialism, colonialism, all these different things, what we're focusing on is a negative aspect of history. So if everyone is being taught negative aspect of history, guess what? You're slowly creating toxic people, people that feed into negative energy because that's all they have been perceived. That's all they've been given into their reality. Toxic nature, man. So there's an actual design of how to create toxic people because any one of us can become toxic without even realizing it because you're soaking up all that negative nature. The more I try to look at a positive thing, I try to view everyone's perspective in a positive manner and know that just because there is a negative thing, there's also a positive side to it. And you also need those negative people. You also need those negative images and those negative experiences in your life in order to understand what a positive experience is. The yin and the yang. You need all these things in order to evolve your own self as you have this human experience. Seems like it doesn't make sense, but when you think about it, trust me, I shouldn't say trust me, but we think about it. Think about it, man. Think about it, because sit down and actually put some real thought into this. And I'm not talking about a few minutes or maybe an hour. Take a few days, take a few months. Really think about this stuff, because like I said, when we talk about toxic people, you don't really know what's going on in someone's life that has made them become that person. You don't know what experience they had that made them become that person. We never think of a racist person as being, we are usually when we think of a racist person, we think of that person or a transphobic or homophobic person, whatever, those irrational terms, because homophobic doesn't make sense. But you get what I'm saying. Those people that do not like someone else because of their lifestyle choice, we never really think, why do they don't like that person? Because the simple fact that they don't like them because of their lifestyle choice. Yes, you do have those toxic people who will do something like that, but it still comes from somewhere. Why do they allow negativity to succumb their lifestyle or succumb their life and their own personal choices and create a bias around them? You're witnessing it right now. Yet it seems like nobody really knows it. You're witnessing right now the change in cycles of, we were talking about American culture, where now white people are being more villainized and being more saying, oh, white people are bad, white people are bad. Guess what? When you do something like that, you create a toxic nature on both sides of the aisle. Those that think white people are racist and stuff like that and inherently racist and all this other stuff, you're creating toxic people because they're feeding into that negativity. And then the people that are white themselves, you're creating toxic people because they're feeding into that negativity, because all they hear is you're bad, you should feel guilty for being white. And the more they try to be proud of themselves for being white, now all of a sudden now you have the rise of the real rise, and not the so-called rise that they're claiming to have, but a real rise of people saying, no, 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 I need to be proud of who I am as white. Even though this probably has already happened to black people in America anyways, or other races or ethnicities in America anyways. It's done by design, but you can't see none of this because you're trapped in emotions, because we're trained to have an emotional response. So if you can really recognize what a toxic person is and recognize that a toxic person is anyone and everyone around you, that it doesn't just necessarily happen overnight. It happens over really probably some years, because based on their experiences. But once again, a lot of the stuff comes about because labels, categories. People place themselves. You can easily create a toxic society by putting people into separate categories and then putting them against one another, because majority of those people will probably keep their thoughts to themselves and won't really care and won't really think too much about it. They might have a episode every now and then where they're like they really feel passionate and express their opinions, but that once those emotions go away, don't majority of us don't give a shit what goes on with everyone else. Majority of us don't care what you do in your household. Majority of us do not care what you who you want to be with and stuff. Like you have those some of those religious aspects who are like that, but you also have 1,200 different denominations of Christianity, and out of 1,200 different denominations of Christianity, I guarantee you'll find at least half of them are okay with having homosexuals in the congregation at church. I don't know about you, but at times I went to church growing up and stuff, seen a lot of gay people, homosexuals rather. I'm not saying that we're gay no more; it's an inaccurate term. So I see a lot of homosexual people, a lot of same-sex people, same-sex relations people. So now what? So you're talking about were you talking about super conservative Christians or super Orthodox Christians and stuff, and then you break those down to a smaller group, and you find these set of toxic people who really should be focusing more on their religious values and morals and stuff like that in their own Christianity, as opposed to being so pissed off at everybody where they want to call people, bad names and stuff like that on the internet. Cause and also understand a lot of toxicity you see on the internet as far as being on comments on the social media. Some of those accounts ain't real people. And I'm not talking about people using anonymous account. I'm talking about just supercomputers, AI algorithms just printing out, saying stuff, adding fuel to the fire. You'll see so many blank profiles or profiles that were just made within a day. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you comment on. If you can be on the so-called right side political spectrum or whatever, you make a comment or you make a post about somebody, someone from the opposite side of the political spectrum will make a comment and be negative and be toxic. And vice versa. If you're on the left side, someone from the right side will make it, because all this negative energy will do nothing but brew toxic people. So instead of looking at the real issue and critical thinking about what type of message is being pushed towards kids, because I think everybody can agree kids really shouldn't be worried about sexualized sexual nature and stuff like that. Obviously, a kid can determine that on their own as they grow up and stuff and whatnot. But one, mainstream media and music and stuff like that shouldn't be so influential. It's one thing to see something and like it, right? Like I knew Lil Nas X was gay when he first came out. I mean, it's not that hard to figure it out, but whatever. There's been other gay rappers, whether you know about them or not. Maybe not as public and big, but it is what it is. Homosexual rappers, rather. But like, you can still like the music and stuff. But see, this is what I'm talking about. They take that, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they drop something else on you, and it's like, whoa, you just did a complete, like, full 360, like, you just switch to something completely different in the drop of a hat, right? Like, now it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you do now as a parent? Do you say, no, we don't want you listening to this, and then people get mad and call you homophobic? Because you have those toxic people who's been more or less, I want to say, I don't, I'll go with the term radicalized. I don't think that's the best term, but I'll go with the term radicalized, because these so-called radicalized people, no matter what out of the political spectrum they're on, guess what? They're toxic people. But they've been created and manipulated and formed into being all emotional and not having any logical standpoint. Because you need that logic to not have you lead so much into emotions, because once again you can easily be led into a negative atmosphere, a negative energy of emotion, if you don't sit back and think. The biggest thing we have to do as human beings in this modern homo sapiens species is really have a handle of our emotions, because you can't necessarily control your emotions, because the emotions are there. They're there for a reason, because it's part of this human experience. Your goal is to master being able to handle your emotions. Something I tell my kids all the time. You have to handle your emotions. You have to be able to stay calm in situations and really have a feeling about it, but sit back and take the time to think about what is going on. The amount of toxic people in the world, it makes me wonder, is it growing? Because it kind of feels like that sometimes. It kind of appears, not feels, it kind of appears to be that way. But once again, you don't really know, because majority of people that don't have a problem with anything, they're not going to be as vocal. And see, I'm one of those people where I don't have a problem with a lot of stuff. I'm pretty vocal on all my opinions. In fact, like I say, this is really intimate because you guys get to hear my true personal inner thoughts on things. Like, this is really exposing myself. I'm coming out completely naked, exposing my inner thoughts. Like, it doesn't, like, I'm putting myself completely out there to be judged, to be criticized, to be ridiculed. Like, it doesn't get no more, almost doesn't get no more exposing than that. But to really think that a lot of people are actually sitting there giving you their complete full inner thoughts, it's not necessarily true. But it's easy for people to have an emotional reaction to something and get online and post an emotional comment because they feel so emotionally strong about something. So emotionally strong about something to the fact that they're willing to defend anybody that goes against it. And so much of that the emotion to defend what you're siding with, guess what? After a while, you become toxic because you're diving into a realm or a realm where there's nothing but negative energy around a certain subject or something like that. Because when it becomes divisive, people get emotionally involved in their so-called ideologies, and they're ready to defend their ideologies emotionally, thus creating a toxic nature that we have, or the appearance of a toxic nature. And once again, we focus on the small amount percentage of the population, and we say, look at these toxic people, they're bad. We say, look at these homophobic, transphobic, whatever people, and they're bad. Look at these racist people, and they're bad. Like, look at these Democratic people, and they're bad. Look at these Republican people, then they're bad. Like, everything is designed to make you feel angry towards someone else, because once you're on one side, then what? You automatically are ready to oppose the other side, which usually tends to be negativity. Even though when we come together for sports, that's why sports is almost like a great thing to see the human nature, because you realize you're one side, you are your team, and then you have your opponent. Now you guys are pitted in a battle against each other in a sporting competitive event with rules and all the other stuff. A lot of emotions are high, but what happens afterwards? Once it's all said and done, you relax, you calm down, you think about it, you're like, I think we won and stuff like that and all that stuff, but you are able to see each other's perspectives because you have put all your emotions out on the table and got rid of them. Because you're able to sit and think about something. When you watch UFC or MMA fighters, boxing and stuff, everybody's all hyped up and emotional before the fight. But guess what? You cannot go into that fight being completely emotional. You can't be negative going into that fight either, because that means you won't think. And any fighter will tell you, when you're in those situations, you really have to control your emotions and or handle your emotions and really think about what you're doing. Because if you don't think, one mistake, bam, you're knocked out. Bam, you're knocked out. Or you get too emotional, you get too much anxiety, or you get too timid, too nervous. Once again, bam, you're knocked out. The second your logical side is clogged up and you cannot think, you are unable to see everything go around. Once again, this is clear psychology right here. These people know that, so they're pulling they're pulling the strings from behind the scenes, making all of us toxic. Like I said, just that one divisive issue, a Lil Nas X making that music video and stuff with Satan in it and all this stuff, you'll get some people that are more paying more attention to the occultic messages and stuff being pushed upon kids, because the things that do come along with pedophilia and molesting kids and doing things to kids, especially when you're talking about red bottoms and blood in the shoes. Like, look that stuff up, see what it's referring to. But see, those are more or less your critical thinkers who are paying attention to the patterns and connecting the dots. Then you have the people who are like, well, no, he's gay. He just making fun of these conservative Christians who say, oh, you can't be gay. If you are, you're going to hell and stuff, which I get too. I can understand that perspective as well. And then all of a sudden you get people who get angry, and once that anger comes about, then you get people that become toxic. And then the same thing on the other side. You get your conservative Christians or Islam, Jewish people, whatever, and they're like, no, this is gay, this is homosexual rather. We don't condone this and blah blah. And these people are going to hell. And this is coming from a person I don't even believe in heaven or hell. I guess I'm gonna do a breakdown episode of that. I don't even believe in heaven or hell. So I'll let you. I'm letting you know from my perspective. I don't give a shit about that. I don't care about religion either. But I do understand there are some negative beings and there are some positive beings, and you can be floating toward a negative being, and that's your business. But me, I don't want to deal with that. But I was saying, you have a conservative Christian and stuff like that, and they get frustrated and saying, "Oh, look at it! I can't believe this is out there, blah blah," and they're doing this stuff. Then they get so angry and pissed off. Then next thing you know, they become toxic. See, toxic people around us, but a lot of this is done by design to create these toxic people. Now, I want to show you guys a video on YouTube, and I should not get a copyright or anything like that. Who fucking cares? But I'm gonna kind of switch up the gears and make it more of a personable, relatable term. And when we're talking about toxic people, so the toxic people that are in your life, one could be you. You might need to look in the fucking mirror first, to be honest with you. You could be that toxic person and not realize it. And this video kind of talks about the 6 signs of a toxic person, and I'll kind of break down some of it. Like I said, I'm kind of transitioning, switching the gears, because I explained it to you on a macro level, how anyone can become toxic and how it's done by design and stuff. But now I'm switching more into the micro level, between talking about toxic people within your own family, your friends, your co-workers, stuff like that, how they're around you and you don't even realize it. But also understand that these are probably the same toxic people that will be the ones to get on there and spew negative messages. Because hate is a strong thing to say, but there's a lot of negative messages around and a lot of negative people on the internet. But once again, when I say a lot, it might be like a million, but what's a million to a billion? What's a million to 8 billion people? You might have a million negative, toxic people around the world out of 8 billion people. Is that really a concern? But that's what we focus on, in negativity. And more or less, I just want to say these things about all this, because to let you know that the negativity is around you, but they're a small percentage of your existence. They're a small percentage of the people that you'll experience throughout your life. And you can disagree with people all the time. In fact, you will disagree. In fact, you have friends and family members that you disagree with, but those are probably your closest ones. Because they are being honest with you and you are being honest with them, but you also put your emotions aside. The best friendships, the best relationships are the ones that are probably the ones you disagree with. That's probably why they say opposites attract. Because you can put your emotions aside and think logically about the situation. But whatever. Let's check out this video and kind of break it down on what they're talking about. And remember, we're switching the gears. We're talking about a more personal relationship level and stuff.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel.
Just to let you know, this is from Psych2Go, a YouTube page. And hopefully I don't get no copyright.
Before we begin this video, we at Psych2Go would like to give you a huge thank you for all the love and support.
Yay.
Now, let's continue with the video. We all have people in our lives who give us a hard time sometimes. Maybe it's because you disagree, don't get along, or simply dislike each other.
Wow.
However, difficult people aren't the same as toxic ones.
Yes.
A toxic person is a negative influence in your life who exploits you and drains your energy with their needless drama.
So drains your energy with their needless drama. So right there, right off the bat, because you hear the word drama, and we done seen it, heard it in different movies, TV shows, all that stuff. No one likes drama. You know, you have that one person in your life that's like, they don't like drama, yet all they do is fucking attract drama. Hell, that might be you. I mean, this is where you have to check yourself. Trust me, I've been down the same path, been down the same road. I understand these things. But you are probably that person. Like, oh man, I don't like drama. Yet you probably create all the drama in your life. Hey, You want to know why I kind of stay in isolation? It's hard to have drama when ain't nobody around to have drama with. But I have friends that have drama in their lives, stuff like that, wherever the case may be. But it is what it is. You sit there and listen to them, like, hey, it sounds shitty, man. It also sounds like not my problem. And it sucks because people think that if you sit there and say it's not your problem, it's not something you have to deal with, that you're kind of being an asshole and stuff, or you being selfish. But no, it's you protecting yourself first, because it's so easy to become consumed with negativity in your life. And we don't really talk about that. Like I said, when we're talking about toxic people, we're talking about negative energy. And anyone can be succumbed to this negative energy. And it doesn't just happen overnight, it happens over a period of time. And if I'm saying this and I can figure this out, I understand that people in the government, the CIA, and all those other institutions, mainstream media, all these corporations, how about these advertising companies? You don't think they realize this? You don't think hell, the best people that probably understand how the mind works, how human beings react emotionally, logically, psychologically, are advertisement companies. Think about it. Those people understand how you think because they can sell you something. They can sell you something and it be some shit that you don't, one, like, two, don't need, three, have never thought about, and they can sell it to you. That's understanding how human beings work. That's actually kind of really disturbing when you think about it. Think about how many times you done bought something because of an ad. They know how we think. They know how we understand. Let me stick on topic to this part.
You emotionally exhausted. If you're not careful, a toxic relationship can rob you of all of your happiness, motivation, and self esteem
Suck
over
you
time.
dry.
To help you figure out if there's someone in your life who's toxic for you, here are 6 telltale signs of a toxic person. 1. They abuse you.
So
What
they abuse you. The government. I talk so much shit about them because someone has to criticize them. Think about a domestic violence situation or a personal relationship. You get emotional abuse, human trafficking, slavery. That's physical abuse along with emotional and psychological abuse. Like this past year, the government telling people you can't go here, you can't do this, you gotta wear this, you gotta do that. That's emotional abuse. That's yanking your chain around and stuff. Saying, oh, well, you can get this vaccine. You don't have to worry about wearing a mask. Oh, wait, you got the vaccine. You know what? You still need to wear a mask. That's emotional abuse, bro. You talking about toxic people? I'm sorry. Look at the White House. No matter what administration is there, there's still toxic people within that administration. Even if you don't think Trump was a toxic person and his couple people around him, you don't think there's other toxic people within that administration hidden there? You don't think they got in there? You don't think they probably became toxic because of the other political aisle getting mad about them or pushing their negativity towards them? You really think the Senate committees or United States senators and the House of Representatives or House of Congress or whatever, you don't think there's toxic people there? I mean, hell, look at them. They get on top, they get on they get on TV all the time and talk in their political speeches. You can hear the toxicity. It's emotional abuse. They abuse us or abuse some of us based on the things they're saying. Black Lives Matter organization, they did all that fundraising and all that stuff to get Biden Kamala Harris into office, and now they haven't heard anything from them. Sounds like abuse to me, right? Sounds like being taken advantage of. I don't know about you, but that's how it starts. See, toxic people, but not necessarily in the manner in which you think. Toxic people can just be a small group of people, but because their negativity is not allowed to spread, but they're able to spread their negativity, thus they can create more toxic people, those who feed into that negativity. You really have to be careful who you have around you. That's why they always say keep your circle small, because you gotta pay attention to who you have around you, because the bigger your circle is, your social circle, guess what? the more chances you add to having someone around you who's toxic. Negative. They're all over the place.
It's physically or emotionally, abusing another person in any way is never acceptable.
No shit.
No matter how often they say they'll change, it's always best to cut ties with someone once abuse starts to happen,
You have to.
especially if it's intentional.
You have to.
Based on a study,
You have to. Anytime there's someone negative around you, you have to get rid of them. Even though it might seem harsh thing to say, it could be your family, friends, parents, hell, kids. To be honest with you, you have to separate yourself. Doesn't mean you stop caring. I understand that as well. We always think in terms of absolute, or if anything, we always think it's a binary choice, whereas A or B, this or that. No, you have two ends of the spectrum, and then you can have all the things in between in the middle. Take this for example. You don't have to think in such a binary concept. You can think of a third option. Last night, my daughter she was cooking noodles on the stove, and she asked, "Hey, Dad, how come it's not cooking fast enough, blah, 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 whatever." I was like, you gotta wait for it to steam up because she was trying to figure out when to start her timer of the noodles. I'm like, you gotta wait for the water to steam up. That lets you know it's boiling, and then you can start your timer. Because right now, you just turn on the stove, it's just getting hot. And she's like, okay, well, how do I know which number to use? And I was like, that's a great question. I don't even know that. And it was like, I don't even know if I ever looked it up before, but I sat there and I just thought about it, and I told her something, but I was like, I don't know if this is correct or not, but this is how it makes sense to me. So you go to your stove, you turn the knobs. I don't know how your stove is, but for some stoves, it will say starting with low, and then it'll be high. But guess what? You never really use low, and you never really use high, because when it comes to cooking, you can't be too cold, but you can't be too hot. So there's your two ends of the spectrum. There's your polarity. You have the low, and then you have the hot. The two ends of the spectrum. But what do you really try to do in order to cook? Depending on what you're cooking, depending on the size of what you're cooking, depending on the pot that you're using, all the numbers in between, that's why it doesn't even matter sometimes what, it doesn't go off temperature. It doesn't matter because you're just trying to gauge what the balance is. Right there. It's always about those third, fourth, sixth, seventh, whatever options. It's not about the one option or the second option. It's about everything in the middle. So when you're dealing with toxic people, we often get so caught up on the negativity of which they have that we don't think about our own positivity. We don't think about the two ends of the spectrum, and we don't try to find balance. You can get rid of a toxic person out of your life, but you don't have to necessarily cut them off completely. You just got to be able to find balance where you're able to handle them in moments where they don't influence you so much. It's all about the balance. And as I was explaining this to my daughter, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It really depends on what you're cooking, but it doesn't matter. There is no set time or temperature or number on this little knob on the stove. You just have to find the balance. Everything in this life and this existence was based on which is to me the best thing for our evolution is trying to find the balance. It's always about trying to find the balance because you have the picture of the yin and the yang, you have the black and the white. But understand when we're talking about a lot of things in society and how we should be governed in politics and what people should do in their lives, what we're trying to find is a balance. So that's why you need all the different opposite ends of the spectrum, and that's why you need all the different perspectives because it helps us find a balance. So even as I talk about toxic people, you can still find the negative, the positivity in all this because if you're around a toxic person who's completely negative and you find yourself to be more positive, now you're trying to find the balance in between where you can be around them enough where they can be in your lives, but not too much where you succumb to what they're doing. Also, it helps them figure out what their balance is too, where they're getting further away from negativity and finding some positivity and trying to find the balance. And you can't be too positive either. You be too positive, you kind of become a little naive to what's going on. Now you're completely innocent and you have no idea how to handle or navigate the world and human beings around you. Fuck, that make a lot of sense when you think about it. Oh man, I don't even know how I just came up with all that. Huh. Shit, that does make sense.
by Moore and Kirkham. Abusers will often wreak havoc on their victims' lives
Yes.
because the lower the victim's self esteem, the more suggestible and easier to exploit they become. To find out if someone is abusive, especially when their actions are mistaken as good intentions or love, try watching our previous video titled
Notice how it said actions are all the actions are mistaken as good intentions. When I say you can create toxic people by design, it's because you're coming out with good intentions. Yeah, I'm coming out with good intentions saying I could be homosexual, I could be transgender, I could be where I want to, and everyone should leave me alone and stuff. It's all good intentions, but you pushing out other agendas and pushing it towards kids and when we're talking about, because I think we all can agree pedophilia it should be something that we don't have in the human species. I think it goes without saying because once again they're trying to normalize pedophilia because they say, you're talking about 14, 15, 16-year-old. No, what we're talking about is prepubescent babies. When we're talking about sex with kids, we're talking about babies, infants, toddlers. People actually get off on that, and it's not the people that you think. It's not the person on drugs stuff down the corner of the street. It's this person over in Congress, these CEOs, execs, and stuff. These people in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry, particularly music. It's these people. It's these people. You understand? It's these people. Look up Pizzagate. There you go, right there. Something I overlooked, and I overlooked some of the stuff for the longest. So I finally sat down and really thought about it because it's really disturbing. So you gotta prepare yourself emotionally as well. But these people are toxic, and they want you to feed into this stuff because it gets you not thinking about the things you want to think about in the manner in which you want to think.
10 Red Flags of Abuse, linked in the description. 2. They're manipulative. They
Sounds like
are
government, right?
compulsive liars who are incredibly charming. For example, they insist an incident didn't happen when it did, or they insist that they did or said something when they didn't. Have you ever met someone like this? If yes, do you often end up questioning your own sanity because they're so good at it?
Yes, we all have those people in our lives where it makes you freak out because you're like, man, do I get what I'm saying? Because as you're using your logic, they are so full of emotion. Because that's really what happens when you don't have the balance of logic and emotion. You become, if you lean too much towards logic, you lack the empathy, as some do. But then if you lean too much towards emotions, you lack the logic. So you don't think about what your actions are doing. You don't care. It's all about emotion, emotion. And the people that are on the opposite end of the spectrum, these are the ones in politics. These are the ones that, who supposedly rise to the top, so they say, and be successful in the manner of which they claim success is, which is not. Your success is defined by your own measurement, but whatever. But we have these celebrities and stuff like that. You have people that are celebrities that are completely emotional and toxic, and you have celebrities that are people in power or so-called power, politicians and stuff like that, who are toxic in the sense of too much logic. You can anybody and everyone around you could be toxic. You just have to kind of pay attention and separate yourself from that because you can't grow as an individual if you have a bunch of toxic people around you. They will suck you dry, whether it be emotional or through logic. They will suck you dry, and it will make you go almost insane because you're like, wait a minute, these people are so adamant about what they're talking about. Meanwhile, you're just like, what? No, this doesn't make sense. I don't get what's going on with this. And for the most part, we're speaking about toxic people is usually more people that are super emotional, people that are really fueled on wanting to feel good about themselves. So when we talk about all these different movements, that's why I don't like these movements and stuff because it gets caught up in people in emotion. But the people that kind of get drawn to it are those who want to feel good about themselves because they are toxic. Instead of instead of trying to work on themselves, become less toxic, becoming less negative, and trying to become more positive and finding a balance. Instead, they attach themselves to things that sound positive, but all they do is continue to spread their negativity. Once again, done by design. Your whole woke culture or whatever they want to call it, all that is just a bunch of negative people, toxic people who are trying to feel good about themselves. Then again, it's not necessarily I should have to correct myself because that does not mean that it's a bunch of those people, but they do kind of make up a percentage of those people that are more about that woke culture and stuff like that. A lot of people are still just, trying to do something good and stuff and just really being led astray or being manipulated. A lot of people are being, we are really, a lot of people are actually being manipulated by toxic people. Once again, on the macro level, it's entertainment industry, it's government, it's politics, it's stuff like that. On a micro level, it's your own personal relationships. Because the toxic people are the small percentage of the population, extremely small percentage of the population. Yet they're the ones trying to have the most influence because they're pushing their negativity on everybody.
This is also known as gaslighting. They do so because it's an extremely devious way for them to get out of trouble.
Sounds like politicians.
3. They exploit you.
Also sounds like
Based on a
politicians.
2015 study by Gross and others, showing toxic people compassion and sympathy only makes you a prime target for them to latch onto. They exploit your kindness and use your good nature against you. They pretend to care about you so they can use you.
Once again, does that not sound like people that all these social justice movements and stuff like that? These things are done by design to get at you because you're a decent person. And you're like, yeah, this sounds good. Trust me. I keep saying trust me. I'm speaking from experience because I know what it feels like. Cause I'm like, yeah, I'm all for this. I'm all for that. Obama, part of the reason why I wanted to vote or why I wanted to vote for him is because I was like, you know what, this sounds good. Well, I'm like, what he's talking about sounds good. Same sex marriage, yeah, everybody should have. Of course, everyone should be able to be married and stuff. I didn't understand what marriage meant. Marriage shouldn't be represented in legality. It shouldn't be represented in courts or the law or the eyes of the law. A marriage is between you and the person that you marry. Doesn't matter. That's between you and that individual, based on your own spirituality, based on your own religious beliefs, if you have any, or wherever the case may be. The government should not be involved in anyone's personal business as far as their marriage. Also, the government should not be involved in anyone's personal business as far as their sexual orientation or whatever, them being adults outside of their parents. Why is that? And see, I had to catch myself, and that's why I say, like, a lot of this stuff is pushed on us by design because we're really not asking the real questions of, wait, why do you guys fill out a form and have a contract drawn up and stuff, whatever, just to get married? Why is that? Why? Because we're talking about taxes? Well, hell, shouldn't be paying taxes anyways. Taxation is stuff. It's illegal. But what's illegal? What's the law if people pay attention to it regardless of it? Whether or not it's ethical or even legal. Man, the things that go on by governments, man, I don't care what no one says, man, governments really destroy people. And the funny thing is people destroying people. Because you create toxic people because they get so caught up in, oh, well, I'm in charge. I'm in the government. I make the rules. And the second they're like that, guess what? They adopt that mentality and like, we got to do this to protect you. Once again, kind of sounds like an emotional abusive relationship, right?
They look out for themselves and only have their best interest in mind, but will often demand that you prioritize them and attend to their needs. 4. They take things out on you. Toxic people.
They take things out on you. I'm going to keep, though, if you haven't realized, the whole topic of this episode, like I said, you didn't go the way you probably thought it was. I'm focusing more on the macro level because people have to understand and pay attention what the government does, what the mainstream media does, what this propaganda machine is doing to all of us. It's a legit propaganda machine done by design, lying to us. This is what they do. Manipulate us. Tell us how to behave. What is it? Oh, you guys aren't doing what you need to do, so we're going to go ahead and put you back on lockdown restriction. How is that not one of the most toxic shit ever? That's an emotional abusive relationship. And that's governments, United States government, state governments, local governments, people outside the United States country that's listening. It's in your country as well, your government, stuff like that. That's toxic. You want to know where toxic people are at? Check your local government. Check your United States government. Check your country's government. Toxic people right there. Toxic people, and those are people that are supposed to represent us, or those are people that are supposed to make laws and rules and all of those stuff, and yet they're toxic themselves. Why is that? Why is that?
Often treat those around them like psychological punching bags. Whenever they're faced with a problem, they
Jerking
tend
you
to deal
around.
with it by taking it out on others and projecting their negative feelings on someone else. For example, they put you down by treating you with hurtful sarcasm and thinly veiled judgment so that they feel better about themselves.
we,
The
we
top
all we all know those we all know those people in our lives that are like always got something negative to say every time you bring up something. You know what I'm saying? They might not even realize that they're doing it, but there's always that person where every time you say something to them, they always got something negative to say. When you have to check yourself as well. It's like, man, am I attracting this negativity? Like, what's going on here?
person will prey on your insecurities and make you feel bad about yourself because, as the saying goes, misery loves company.
Think about it. Think about it when they were talking about, uh, what I said, they shut down the gym and stuff. Why would you want that done when obviously obesity would be and was and is or whatever a thing that would cause the spread of somebody getting COVID-19. But in general, you getting sick, you not having your body in balance and not paying attention to your diet, your nutrition, and your weight, you're gonna arise health issues within yourself. So when you're talking about toxic people, you're talking about the government being toxic and jerking you around, messing with you. I'm gonna tell you you can't go outside, you can't exercise at this gym and stuff, but I'm doing this to keep you safe and healthy. It's a toxic relationship. That's a toxic relationship right there. That's all that is. It's putting you down. It's trying to keep you health. It's coming off as good intentions. Meanwhile, also insulting you at the same time by telling you you don't know what to do. You don't know what's best for you. We can figure it out for you. That's a toxic relationship because you will not have that same toxic person that you have a relationship with, far as a romantic relationship. You be in a relationship with a toxic person saying, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you. I'll do all these things for you." You don't know what you're doing. Let me tell you what to do. You don't know, like, and it's hard too because some people are doing this out of good intentions, but if you don't pay attention enough, you will become this negative, toxic person. Any of us are susceptible to becoming a negative, toxic person. We're susceptible to that negative energy if you're not paying attention to what you're putting out into the universe, what you feel about within yourself. That's why it's best to focus on yourself because if you focus on everything around you, you will end up absorbing all that information, all that emotion, and all that negativity or positivity, depending on where you're around. But if you focus on yourself, you're able to manage your own emotions and know your logic and be able to critical think and think about these things because you're more focused about yourself and what's going on and how you perceive the world around you. Toxic people everywhere, and the most toxic people, United States government. God, you gotta really think about it, man, as they're fucking with us, man.
5. They never compromise. Have you ever dealt with people who have an unhealthy desire to be right all the time and only want to do things their way? It can be exhausting just to be around them, isn't it? They may believe that they're right about
Yes,
everything and thus will often try to intimidate and control you into doing things their way.
and that's draining because once again, you say you're in a relationship and you propose an idea about something, and they're like, no, no, you're wrong. And then I was like, okay, well maybe I am. And then you keep hearing that you're wrong. But then you find out that after that situation plays out, that your thought process or the idea that you suggested turning out being the better option. Then it's kind of like, well, man, why didn't you listen to me? And then you get mad, and then that toxic person, if you pay close enough attention to yourself, you won't realize it. But as your anger and resentment builds up, all of a sudden you become toxic yourself. It's something I had to address in my own life, in my own personal relationships. Like, hey, am I being negative? Because I'm realizing that by me constantly talk about this negative stuff, I'm spreading negativity as well. That's why I don't even. try to complain to my friends and family members no more. Like if I do, I try to say it in an objective manner, but I also don't say it with emotions or negativity anymore because you have to be careful. You have to be careful. You'll succumb to that negativity without even realizing it because you're just complaining about something else or someone else in your life, sucking in that negativity, becoming a toxic person.
They refuse to hear you out or see things from your point of view and get upset with you when you don't follow their demands. This kind of toxic behavior can trap you in a vicious
And
cycle
see,
of frustration
this
and
what happens when you don't. I'm just pausing all over the place, whatever. But this is what happens when that's why I say like we in society we need to be able to disagree with each other. We need to be able to have an emotional, logical debates and stuff and disagree and walk away feeling okay about it all. Because if anybody walks away feeling too negative about something, now you're creating a toxic person. Because this video talks about 6 signs of toxic person, and a lot of these videos talk on YouTube that I've seen, they all talk about the same thing: signs of a toxic person. But we don't really talk about what creates a toxic person. Anyone can be created. A toxic person can be created by anybody. But this is how it happens leading into this stuff. So when I say all these things, all these labels, all these categories are designed to be devices and put us against each other, it's also designed to create a toxic group of people within those and within each or within both sides of the spectrum. And those toxic group of people will be the ones that we focus on. Let's say when we talk about American history, we talk about slavery. Of course, all those things, not of course, but according to history and stuff, all those things happen, and you have people who witnessed it and talked about it and stuff. Those are negative images, right? Those are negative events. Those are negative situations. But we could be talking about 5% of a 95% thing, right? We could be talking about a small slice of what was actually going on. We can only be seeing or hearing about the negative perspectives and not the whole total picture. But guess what happens? You create people that become toxic because it gets sucked into that negativity. You're you're creating those type of so-called hateful, racist, whatever people by constantly putting out a message of, look, these people were treated bad. They're so bad, 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 bad. And the other people are like, well, no, just because I don't like that doesn't make me bad. And then they get upset and then they become toxic themselves.
powerlessness against someone who simply can't be reasoned with. And finally, they always play the victim card. Toxic
Always plays the victim. What do you see in mainstream media and stuff? Everyone comes out saying, woe is me. Jay-Z, Beyonce talking about we've been oppressed. We're tired of this. And it's like, there's no we because you guys don't seem like you're being oppressed. So what are you talking about? How can you say we? Oh, because our skin color just so happens to look similar? Yeah, I'm supposed to identify with you. Once again, it's why I don't like all these labels, these categories, because it groups people up and puts people devices. Now, someone like me, because I don't go with the whole race thing, now I'm a coon, I'm an Uncle Tom and stuff. Once again, that will create a bunch of people who are similar to myself and creates toxic people. But that's not me because I'm aware of what's going on. I don't give a fuck how you feel about what I'm saying. If you don't agree with it, good for you. Like, I don't expect anybody to agree with me. Some people might, some people may not. Doesn't really matter. I'm just telling you what perspective I have on the situation. I'm just taking shots at the government and mainstream media and these corporations who are pushing their agendas on everybody just so they can create all this stuff. Because guess what? The U.S. government, they need toxic people. It's good for business. You need toxic people. It's good for business because if I'm the U.S. government, once again, I want to control the population. How do I control the population? Find ways to divide up everybody and attack each group and all these other groups and put them against each other. Meanwhile, I'm behind the scenes pulling the strings and figuring out how I'm gonna deal and do with all this stuff. And put next thing you know, you got a law created here, and next thing you got a law created here. Like I said, I didn't like the law. I think one of the Mississippi or one of the states passed saying they're banning. I think it might have been Utah, where they're banning transgenders from sports, from female sports, and it's like I don't like that. And you hear me talk out about this whole transgender movement, so that really should be about hermaphrodite lives matter, but no one cares about that. because nobody understands the science and biology behind that. We're talking about the people that have feelings and they feel like they're the opposite sex or whatever. But I don't like a law that says, oh, you can't have that. Because once again, this toxic nature, these toxic people and stuff, they get everybody riled up. And now all of a sudden you just want to push back against it. But you end up becoming more into the system of control which they want to put us in. You can't constantly create more laws upon more laws. Like it's like an abortion. You're on one side of abortion or you're on the other side of abortion. Yeah, no one really talks too much about adoption. And then we do talk about adoption, and it's like, oh, you can't just let anybody adopt. It's funny because you won't let just anybody adopt, yet you can't stop anybody from having kids. And see, there's got to be a middle ground somewhere in between all that, because no matter which side of the argument that you're on, your perspective can be seen objectively and make sense. But we also have to have some emotion involved in all this stuff, because what we're talking about is the caretaking of children. What we're also talking about is as well the responsibility of adults. But even in those arguments, or the argument or the debate of abortion, you create toxic people on both sides of the spectrum, on both sides of the aisle, who are like, oh well, abortion should matter and stuff. It's our bodies, our life, and stuff like that. And then it become toxic and become bad. Next thing you know, they're radicalized and stuff, and they're protesting. Their protests become riots, or somebody does something in the name of whatever, fighting for abortion laws. Then the next thing you know, you have people that are against abortion. They're tired of people saying that oh, we should have abortion. And they're like, no, we gotta protect the children, the unborn children. We gotta look at them and stuff. And then they get so mad, they get so pissed off, they become toxic themselves. See what I'm saying? Like, these things are put out there by design, because it's going to create toxic people. If people on YouTube and regular people can come up with all the 6 signs of a toxic person, if you can know the signs of a toxic person, then if you pay attention to it, you could develop a toxic person. Once again, you don't think the CIA and all these other institutions, the United States government, all these governments around the world, all the people who main intentions are to control the human population, you don't think they know how to create a toxic person? Majority of stuff I talk about is about exposing the government and what they do. And all I'm doing is saying the shit that they already saying that they do. That's it. I don't have no secrets, right? Like, they can't throw me around, lock me up and stuff, whatever I got going on, because I don't have no secrets. I'm not doing nothing but paying attention to what is going on. I read their documents, I critical think, and I try to put myself in their perspective. If I wanted to control the population and do certain things, if I wanted to push communism, or if I want to push globalization, and I knew I would have some people to go against it, how would I go about this? Create all these different categories, labels, put people into different categories, put them on different sides of a topic, of a subject, and then you radicalize one side, you radicalize the other side. Those radicalized people are those toxic people, and those would be the most advocate ones that are speaking out about something, and everyone else kind of gets drawn into it. That's creating more toxic people. That's creating a nation of toxic people going back and forth at each other. Next thing you know, you have some type of psychological, sophisticated civil war or something like that, and everybody's at each other's throats. And then you have destruction, and then you have someone coming along saying, oh, look, I got something better. Communism, globalization. We all need to be treated equally. We all need to have the fair rights and do all these things. But don't worry, we, the central authority, will give that to you. It's that simple, man. It's that simple. These plans ain't that complicated, bro. It's just that you don't think of in perspective of being that type of person. But we put yourself in that position from that type of perspective, thinking that, oh, how would I want to control the human population? How would I want to control a nation? How would I want to bring down a nation and bring in a different type of political ideology and stuff like that? Well, this is how you do it. And this is how you do it over generations. In fact, you raise one generation to be a certain way. Meanwhile, you raise the next generation after that to be a certain way. So now you have parents going back and forth with their own children. And now you have competing ideologies within the household. And guess what? At some point in time, someone will become toxic and push back. Now you have the separation of the family. It's that simple, man. It's really that simple.
People enjoy claiming the role of the victim because they don't want to take responsibility and accountability.
People on the left would be like, "Oh yeah, all the Republicans, all the Trumpers and stuff, they just don't want to accept the responsibility that they're just playing the victim card because they Trump lost and stuff, and he's a horrible president, so they're playing the victim card and stuff like that. That's why they're lashing out against all these things that they're so homophobic, they're so transphobic, they're just mad, right? That's the narrative. See, I put that together. People on the right, oh man, they're just mad because they're all mad because Biden is messing up and stuff. Now they're all starting to see this and stuff. Whatever, these guys are always playing the victim. It's always Black Lives Matter or Trans Lives Matter. It's always woes me. They're playing the victim and stuff like that. They get mad and they become toxic themselves. That's all it comes down to. Instead of everyone just accepting a responsibility for their own actions. Instead of everyone just being accountable for what goes on. Instead of everyone saying we don't need to look to a president or government or anything like that to do the things that we need to do for ourselves. We could be a self-governing species, but still have respect for everybody and think about the species in total. We're just not there yet. We're just not evolved yet.
For anything. To them, nothing is ever their fault. Whether it's something they do or fail to do, it's always someone else's fault. They have double standards. If they get mad, it's your fault for disappointing them. But if you get upset, it's your fault for having unreasonable expectations.
Yes.
In the end, while all of us can be problematic at times, there's a difference between being flawed and being toxic.
We're all flawed.
Do any of these signs remind you of someone in your life? If so, what do you plan to do next? What other topics would you like to talk about?
We're all flawed. We're all flawed. It doesn't matter. We have to be flawed because we as a species cannot learn to evolve without having all these different perspectives. And you need the skewness of all these kind of odd perspectives. You need someone like me. Someone who can think in a certain way, someone who is out at the same time feels emotional enough to speak out loud about certain things, kind of speak up on these things and stuff and just get my own perspective. Because the perspective in which I put out there, or not put out there, my own perspective, and then me relaying my own perspective out to the rest of the world, lets you know that you don't have to just see everything this way or that way, because my perspective does not come from one side or this side. It's just a scramble of a bunch of shit in the middle. I try to see everything in gray. I don't see everything in black and white. But majority of us are being led to believe that everything is black and white, even though it's not. And it's funny because that black and white is too much of a logical thing. Because your emotions help you determine by finding a balance of something in the middle. At the same time, your logic also helps you determine by finding a balance in the middle because you're finding the two ends of the spectrum. This shit might go over your fucking head for all I know. It might be like, what is he saying? I don't think he's saying it that right way. But trust me. I keep saying trust me. But understand, like, there's a plan behind all this. It makes sense. It makes sense when you stop and think about it. Like I said, I didn't take the route of the normal, oh, this is toxic people in your life and stuff like that and what goes on. I'm explaining to you how toxic the government is and how the whole nature of toxic people is actually by design being created by the United States government, by governments around the world, by media, and by corporations around the world. Because those toxic people give them good business. You see it's kind of often, not often, you see it sometimes now, take the like toxic fans. Like with the whole Snyder Cut thing. People are mad about the Justice League movie. Those people that are mad about Justice League movie are those people that grew up watching Justice League animated movies, are watching, are reading the comic book stuff and really invested. Those people are used to prop up a certain type of IP, intellectual property, as far as comics, the toys, the animated movies. So when it comes time for a big budget blockbuster movie, those people are the one pushing that, because the regular normie people that don't know about those things, the only reason they hear about it because the popularity that came from those true fans. Remember, fans, fanatical, a person that really obsesses over something like that. It's irrational. It's emotional based, but at the same time, it's also pushed towards something specific. Once again, done by design. So then you have these fans who get mad and be like, this is not the movie that we want to see. This is a bad movie. And then you have normal people who don't know anything about the source material or anything of that comic book movie or whatever, or that video game adaptation movie or whatever, or even the book. I think the same argument for like 50 Shades of Grey or Games of Thrones, where people like the book is always better and stuff. Because when they put these things out there, guess what? They're creating toxic people because they're taking that fandom that they already had, and those people get so positive. They would have such a positive reaction because like, oh yeah, I get to see a live action version of this thing, and it's gonna be great. And then you watch it and you get pissed off. Now you have a negative reaction because you're really mad that they went and took something that you enjoyed and just shit all over it and created something completely different for no reason, other than to push their own propaganda and political social messages and stuff like that. Or it just hire writers who don't give a shit about the product in itself and the origins of the content of of that product, as far as that the book and stuff like that, where they don't even bother to read it. The woman that I think it was a woman who wrote, who was the main writer or the head writer or whatever for the WandaVision show on Disney Plus. She said she didn't read up on anything about Scarlet Witch. How you gonna write a goddamn show about something yet you didn't read the source material? You didn't read the original stuff. How you don't do your homework? It's like going into a project and you're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna wing it. And see, this creates toxic people because they respond in a negative manner because they were so high up on the show and getting ready to watch it, and they felt so positive about it that the immediate absence of positivity, now all of a sudden they become negative, and now they're being labeled as toxic because they are becoming so negative because they are pissed off. And that doesn't go with everybody, but obviously kind of get what I'm saying, just because we're still talking about a small portion of the people. Same thing with males. We're talking about toxic males because some males, myself, and I raised my son the same way. Somebody be like, oh, you can't, your son should be able to wear a dress if he wants to. No. Okay, he gets older, he can, but for me, I'm raising the male, I'm raising the man, and men don't wear dresses because dresses ain't designed for men. Now, obviously, we're not talking about Irish kilts and stuff like that, but the skirts and stuff like that, they're designed for a woman's body. Guess what? I'm sorry, I have testicles. They have to actually be warm. You can't just have them be cold. So you got to have some warmth around your testicles in order for you to produce sperm. Otherwise, you have a low sperm count. Guess what? You have a male with a low sperm count and stuff like that, then you're starting to question their testosterone levels. A person can have low testosterone levels by a chemical imbalance, which is also can come about because of the food that they ingest. Maybe a little too much soy lactin, maybe some BPA stuff. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm throwing it out there. There's some scientific claims for that, but you can create that type of thing. So when we're talking about transgenders or whatever the case may be, we're not necessarily talking about people biologically, chemically. We're talking about people that say they feel like something. They feel it. They're coming from an emotional standpoint, not necessarily a biological or logical standpoint of that situation. But all of a sudden, you can create a toxic male because as that man is like, no, I'm not wearing a dress. Why you guys keep trying to push me into this? And as that man is worrying about his child, his son, and he's like, no, why are you trying to push this message onto my son? That's not what I'm trying to preach in my house. Now, if my child gets older, my son gets older, and he goes off and makes his own choice, that's his own choice. But at least I know it's his own choice. I don't want him to be influenced. It's something I constantly talk about with my kids and my son as well. My kids and my son as well. It's the same fucking thing. As I talk about this with my kids, all I say is, hey, you can be what you want to be, but don't let nobody influence you. Because what I'm seeing right now, this is who you are. Because you are who you are. You always are who you are, whether you know it or not. You might stray away from who you are, or you might evolve and build upon who you are. But you are who you are. From my perspective, or from my own opinion, I don't think anyone ever changes. I think we just evolve. We either evolve or we run away from who we are. And we kind of get caught up on that perspective. But on those perspectives. But see, you can create a toxic male because that man is like, no, I don't want to wear a dress. Why you guys keep pushing it? No, I don't want to change my hair color. No, I don't want to paint my nails. Why you guys keep pushing these things? These things that was viewed for towards women or whatever. Now you're trying to push it onto men, and some men might not agree with it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just they don't agree with it. Some men don't agree with wearing 2 earrings a year. They might say that's feminine. They might look at me like, oh, you look kind of feminine because you have 2 earrings in your ear. I'm like, I don't care. This is what I want to do. So I was saying, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and tell the men that they can't wear a dress or anything like that. No, I can't. I'm not going to do that. But see how it's done by design? If you get someone against the fence and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't like that. Then all of a sudden they start to push back and they become negative. And all of a sudden they're labeled a toxic male because they didn't want to wear a dress. And they're like, yo, I don't agree with that. And they become more vocal about that because they can feel that they're being they're being manipulated. Guess what? Mainstream media, toxic relationship. Because one instance they're saying, oh, this is what you do. You're a man. And the next instance they're saying, you're not a man because you want to be all macho or stuff like that. You could be a man and wear a dress. And it's like, well, I don't want to do that. In fact, I don't want. In fact, you know what? Wherever you say is a man or a woman, I don't even give a shit about. Whatever. I'll figure that out on my own, or I'll figure that shit out on my own. I'm not gonna go with your own definition, your own determination of it. But because we have these divisive issues, they create toxic people. And you probably didn't realize that. Hell, I didn't really realize that until this weekend. Until that thing with Lil Nas X. That's why I led off with that, because that creates toxic people. Or if anything, it creates the illusion of toxic people. Because someone voicing their opinion and saying, no, I don't want this agenda being pushed upon me or my kids. Now all of a sudden, now that person is toxic. And they're being grouped in with the actual real toxic people, which might be a person who is super conservative Christian and they're feeding into the negativity and they're pushing back and they're becoming toxic themselves. But once again, these are just small portions of the population we're talking about. But these are the things that we focus on. Want to know why? We have to focus on the negativity at times in order to push us towards the positivity. You can't learn anything if you don't have mistakes. And we often associate mistakes with negative experiences. Wow. I think I made that make sense. I think I made it all make sense. And if I didn't make it make sense, I probably just suck at trying to make it make sense. What I said could be really in depth and deep, or what I said could mean not a goddamn thing, could be complete bullshit. I don't even know anymore. But that's just how I wrapped it all around in my head. Is as I'm trying to think about it, I'm trying to connect the dots and stuff because I'm like, why is this going on? And then as I thought more about it, I'm like, man, are we actually creating toxic people? We're creating a toxic environment by every time we focus on the divisive nature of some of these issues. And these issues are put out there by design to be divisive because they never lead with the middle perspective. Understand that nothing that is propagated in mainstream media, nothing that the governments or all these other corporations push out, it's never a middle perspective. It's never a middle standpoint. It's never leading with the gray areas. It's always leading with the left or right, up or down, black or white. Hell, black and white. That's why I don't like to calling people black or calling people white, because it literally sets up to do a dualistic objective or a situation or whatever you want to call it. It sets up two opposite ends of the spectrum, black and white. But guess what? Black and white is the colors of light, and they're one end of the spectrum and the other end of the spectrum. And guess what? In between, you have all the different colors of the rainbow. So you have all these different colors of visible light that we can see. But then you have black, and then you have white. Black is the absence of all light, right? As black is the absence of all light. Once again, how the fuck can space be dark? Because you have a big ass sun that gives off light. Just saying, just throwing it out there. Doesn't make sense, right? When they say these things, just saying. Now you can't correlate it to something else because it doesn't make sense what they're saying. But then, what white is the essence of all. White is the light that tracks all the other visible light or all the other light, within the spectrum of the light spectrum, within the light spectrum rather. It collects all that. So white is a color that observes all light, and black is the absence of all light. You're creating two ends of the spectrum. You're creating two sides of a situation. You're creating a where you, if you want to call it positive or negative, because it all depends on your perspective. So when you say colors and race and stuff, you're talking about black and white. You're already creating a divisive issue. You're creating a divisive subject, and it stops people from thinking about some of these things and leaves with emotions. When the mainstream narrative is pushed, it's never pushed from a perspective of the middle or the gray area. It's always pushed from a perspective of this or that, left or right, black or white. It's done by design. Thus, it creates toxic people. Because eventually somebody will be consumed with that emotion, and those emotions will become negative, and now they are toxic. And not necessarily toxic in a manner like they're gonna go shoot up something or get mad at people or other thing like that, or not get mad, but physically hurt people. But they will maybe assault somebody. Maybe they get in an argument with someone, they call them a racial slur, right? Or they call them a negative word against homosexuals, same-sex relationship people, and stuff like that. That's what that's what happens. And you know they don't actually mean it. You know they don't actually mean it. How many times you've been pissed off with someone, you said something, you didn't actually mean it because your emotions got the best of you. When we talk about toxic people, I can see it when I'm playing video games. When I'm playing NBA 2K, people message me all the time, and they always message me the most negative thing. They're like, "Oh, you suck. Oh, you're ass. You're trash. You need to delete the game. What are you doing? Blah blah." I didn't even play bad. I didn't, because they're so toxic. They don't even recognize that they're so consumed by negative energy that they focus on one negative thing, and all it takes is for that one negative thing to happen, or that thing that they perceive as negative. Because say I turn the ball over while I'm playing the 3-on-3 game in the city, and I'm playing a 3-on-3 game and stuff, and say I turn the ball over right when the game starts. Next thing you know, somebody hops on the mic and say, "Bro, what are you doing, bro? You trash, man. I knew you was trash. I could tell by the way you're dressed, you're trash. You can tell by the way I'm dressed in a virtual game that I'm trash at this game. A game that requires no real skill. A game so filled with so much animations that the computer determines whether or not you're gonna do certain things. These same people, these are the toxic people though. Because they're focused so much on negative perspectives that they become toxic because they fill their lives with negativity without even realizing it. It was somebody, I think oh yeah, because I don't have none of the Black Lives Matter apparel, clothing and stuff, whatever in the game. I don't have none of that. They got a lot of black college stuff like that, which is also from Black Lives Matter. Interesting enough. They sell these different shirts and hoodies and shorts and stuff like that in the game, and people spend their money. People spend their virtual currency, their VC, in the game, and they also spend real money to buy the virtual currency in the game to spend in buying these clothing items, which is whatever. Do what you want to do with your money. Not for me personally, but I get it. I've done it before in the other games, but I get it. But they buy this stuff and they put this stuff on. So I also get attacked too. Somebody was like, "Oh, they call me a sellout," and I'm like, "What is a sellout?" And then it hit me. I'm like, "Wait a minute! It's because I don't have no Black Lives Matter stuff on, and I have a dark skinned avatar in the game. So now all of a sudden, I'm a sellout. Once again, I'm a coon. I'm a Uncle Tom because they got so mad and negative about a play I made in the game. Because I don't even have to. I can say I played bad or whatever that game. It doesn't even matter because it's got the computer control shit. It's by design. You're gonna play bad at some point in time, whether you try to do good or not. It's by design. Called the dynamic difficulty adjustment. But that's just computers. That's just a game itself simulating ways to make you adjust difficulty level, make you play bad. But people get so mad about it because they're so toxic. They're negatively consumed themselves that I could just do one bad thing, and then they text me or they message me and stuff through Xbox Live and say, "Oh, you suck. you're trash, you're a sellout, you need to get rid of the game, you're this and that, you're fucking horrible, pass the fucking ball. And it's like, pass the ball. I had one dude message me because he was like, hey, because he was like, oh, he messaged me talking about, oh, you ass. I was like, I had 5 assists. He's like, so you still suck. I'm a 79 overall and you're a 95. You suck. It's like, bro, I had 5 assists. In fact, you scored because I passed you the ball. Yet I suck. People are just negative, man. So now I'm switching more back to the micro level of it all. People are just so negative that it doesn't matter. All they know is negativity and they don't even realize it. Because all they do is focus on one negative thing and then they latch on to that negative thing and then they blow it up. Because we lost that game, he had to find some reason to blame me for it. And I say he because I clicked on his profile and stuff. I report all those people anyways. Fuck them. I report because, man, I report mainly because my biggest issue is that kids play this game and you don't know who you're talking to. So you gotta be respectful because it could be a kid that you're playing against, and now you're gonna ruin it. Now you're gonna make this kid mad because you're sitting there cussing at a child. But anyways, like because we lost that game, that person needed to find a reason to spread their negativity because they're so negative. They only focus on the negative aspects. They don't take and they're running off of full emotion because they sit and take the time to think like, why am I calling this man ass? Why am I saying that he sucks when he sat there and got 5 assists? He has the most assists on the game. He clearly was being a team player and passing the ball around and helping us try to win the game. So he did his part. He was part of the team. But no, instead, they're so negatively consumed by their own negative aspect and their own negative energy that project negativity everywhere else without even realizing it. Another example, this is also from NBA 2K. This is also why I want to talk about toxic people because they're not abundant, but they can easily be created. So it might give you the illusion that there's a lot more toxic people in the world, but really just a lot more divisive narratives are put out there in the mainstream media and through government because they push the same narratives as well. This creates toxic people because people get consumed by negative energy without even realizing it. So I'm playing the game, and once again, the game just started. I think I messed up and dribbled the ball out of bounds. If you ever play NBA 2K21, especially next gen, you could be by the sideline, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you just go out of bounds. And it's like, and you're sitting there trying to press a button to do something different, and it doesn't matter because the animations take over, and you can't even literally, and this is literally, I'm not exaggerating, you cannot stop doing what you're doing sometimes. The animations, the computer takes over, and the animation just has to play out regardless of what you're doing. It doesn't matter what button you press, it doesn't matter. The computer takes over, the animation plays out. Especially those who have ever played Madden, you know what I'm talking about. Doesn't matter what button you press, the computer has already determined this is what animation is going to play out. Doesn't fucking matter. So that's why sports games are not really big in esports and the competitive nature because animations have such a control or manipulate the game or have such an impact, rather, that's the correct word I should say. They have such an impact on the player's ability to have full user control that you're saying you're good, really it could just be because of certain animations going on and it happen more often. Anyways, now it get confusing for some people that don't play video games. But this guy, so I messed up, and this guy gets on, and then he says, "Man, I knew you was trash. I knew I should have gone in the game with you. I knew you was trash. I could tell by the way you look you was trash because my outfit I have is generic, it's basic. It's just really whatever free items I got. I didn't pay for anything because I don't give a shit to pay for anything because the VC I get from the game goes to building my character. So I don't care about none else. I don't care about wearing none of the other shit. I don't give a shit about that shit. I don't care. I don't even care. I don't even pay attention to what I got on. I got on a Lakeland Magic jersey because I'm from Lakeland, right? But these people get on there, and I hear him on the headset. I hear him on the game. I don't even have the game volume up. I turn it down because I don't even feel like listening to nobody talk. And then when people usually start talking, I immediately mute them because there's a lot of negative people. And I'm not talking about your regular or your gamer that gets on there and trash talks in the lobby and it's all fun and stuff, whatever. I'm talking about people that literally just be negative. So my biggest issue with this person saying these things is because he doesn't know whether or not I'm a kid or not. So he starts saying this and that and all this other stuff. So I let myself become consumed with negative emotion. When I say anybody become toxic, anybody can become toxic. This just recently happened, like last week I think. I let myself become negatively consumed with negative emotion and allow myself to become toxic because then I get on the headset. And here I'm also positively motivated by a good message, but I allow myself to get into this toxic nature because I get on the headset and I get on there. I'm saying, hey, guy, you need to watch who you're talking to. And he's like, oh, no, now you want to get on there and want to talk shit? I was like, no, you need to watch who you're talking to. I was like, watch your mouth, bro. I was like, you need to understand. You need to have some respect. You don't know how old I am. And I think I mentioned this before in one of the podcasts. And it's like, bro, you don't know how old I am. You don't know what age I am. So don't sit here and say these things and stuff, cussing and stuff like that. You don't know who you're talking to. Don't sit here and try to talk about the gameplay and all this stuff. I kept saying all these different things like you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who you're talking to. And I was like, why are you such a negative person? And then he's like, well, I'm not a negative person. What are you talking about? I was like, yeah, you are. You're a negative person because you want to get on here and talk negativity. And see how I would have to be careful because I'm allowing myself to get into these toxic, negative situations and discussions going back and forth with people. And this was one of the moments where I had to make sure I didn't use any curse words because one, I wouldn't want to be a hypocrite because I don't know how old he is. And he eventually said how old he was. And all I said was just be respectful. Because to me, I knew I was still talking to someone way younger than me. I knew I was still talking to someone way younger than me. Actually, as I say, I knew I was making an assumption. I was really less hoping that I was talking to someone way younger than me. Because I was hoping that someone as the same age as me, 34, I was hoping that that person would have enough maturity to know not to talk like that. And then the guy kept saying, oh man, I'm not negative at all. I'm not negative at all. I was like, oh man, I just got done fucking my bitch, which I don't like to hear people say that or call women that, but whatever. Negativity. But that's just my own opinion. And he's like, I just smoked a blunt. I'm good. Life is good. My first thought is, if that's good life for you, the bar is set extremely low. I don't know about you, but that once again, this is my own personal opinion. I just kept that thought to myself because I didn't want to come off sounding negative towards him as well, judging his own personal life choices. If that's what he thinks is a good time, then that's what he thinks is a good time. Me personally, that's not my idea of a good time. It's something that you can enjoy doing, but I'm like, I don't feel like, oh yeah, my life is great because I just did these two things. That's just me personally. But he kept saying, oh man, I can tell by the way you play that you at least 22. No, later on, I ended up mentioning him again and stuff. Cause I was like, whatever. After that, I was like, I need to be positive. I was like, GG's good game, stuff like that. After I played up against him again in another game, whatever. This guy was on my team, and I played against him and stuff like that. But I did that intentionally because I wanted to, because I wanted to bother him. And I had to catch myself because I get caught up in the things where I'm like, I start becoming petty. So I allow myself to become toxic, become negative, and become petty. Where I was doing shit on purpose in the middle of the game just to fuck the game up because at this point I'm like, you know what? I just want us to lose now because I'm this fucking petty now. I just want us to fucking lose. Like I said, you always gotta work on yourself, man. Every now and then you might have step backs, you might mess up a little bit, but you always gotta keep working on yourself. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna become petty now. I'm gonna become petty. I'm like, fuck this game. Fuck this game. I'm gonna start throwing the ball. I'm gonna just turn the ball over, just do whatever. I'm not gonna play no defense. He was like, oh, now you ain't gonna play no defense and stuff. See, that's what I'm talking about. And then he was like, man, you black people there's always a black motherfucker when I do some shit like this. Also coming from another so-called black person, which is funny, right? But he's all about this stuff, and I come to realize, I was like, this guy has on the Black Lives Matter mask on his character on the game. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I caught myself like, no, don't stereotype people or profile them based on their political ideologies or wherever they want to align with and stuff like that. But it's just how simple it is where you can get caught in a negative and toxic situation with a complete fucking stranger. But this is what happens all the time when you have divisive topics and divisive issues. It creates these type of situations. Because he's so negative and he caught up in a negative environment or a negative mindset, and not necessarily because just what's going on in his life or anything like that, or anything. Just could just be at that moment he was being in a negative mindset that he had to get on there and say those things based on some other stuff, whatever. And then me having reaction to it, emotional reaction to it, but obviously from a logical standpoint, come like you need to think about what you're saying. I get on there and have an emotional reaction as I tell this person to think about what they're saying. I'm also having an emotional reaction, and I have to calm down and make sure I think about what I'm saying. Thus, involve myself in a toxic situation and almost becoming a toxic person for no reason, just because of a divisive issue of really of just saying, hey, you need to pay attention to how you speak on here and who you're speaking to because I might be a child, which goes without saying, right? That's obvious. I might be a child. But at the same time, he allows something to become negative, consumed with emotion where he's not thinking about what he's saying. And I'm pretty sure after he thought about what he was saying, he was probably like, man, I shouldn't have said it that way. As myself, after I thought about what I said, nothing I said was necessarily in the wrong, or at least that's my own opinion. But at the same time, even though just because I didn't, like I said, curse words don't mean nothing. Because even though I didn't curse, my intention still became more negative, even though I didn't use those words. So just me trying to not use no curse words, which I have to catch myself sometimes, like, oh, just because I didn't cuss does not necessarily mean I did not have negative intentions when I said certain words. Because when I said certain words to him, like, you need to watch your mouth, I was saying it in more of a negative manner, not in a positive light. Thus, allowing myself to become involved in a toxic situation. It's that simple. It's that easy for any one of us to become a toxic person. You gotta pay attention to yourself, man. You gotta pay attention to what's going on. You gotta pay attention to how you handle your emotions. You gotta pay attention to how much critical thinking you're actually doing. You gotta find a balance to all that. Because if not, you will become a toxic person on any divisive issue. And my issue with it was just I'm getting tired of people saying stuff on here for no damn reason, not knowing who I am. And he's getting tired of people playing bad and messing up and stuff. Well, really, what he's tired of, the negative aspect that comes with losing. That's what's his concern, losing the game. So instead of accepting responsibility for his own actions in the game, and all really accepting, really using his brain and understanding that shit doesn't matter anyways because the game is broken. There's no real competitiveness in the game. There's no real free user control in the game, so it doesn't matter. The game is broken anyways. These games are built and designed to be broken themselves. Want to know why? Because so they can spew out another one in the following year. You're not gonna make a great perfect game because what can you produce the next year? Nah, you finna kind of make a broken game every fucking year. But anyways, just these issues that just seem really, they're really pointless, right? We're talking about video games, we're talking about competition, we're talking about a one game, one game. We're talking about 10 to 15 minutes of interaction with another person somewhere else in the world. Well, probably he's on, actually probably on the East Coast somewhere because you're playing on internet connection. They're lining with East Coast servers, so he's somewhere between probably Florida and Virginia. Maybe a little further out to like a Georgia, not Georgia, but like Mississippi, Alabama area, or something like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's people on the East Coast. But you get caught up in these situations where you become toxic just because you allow yourself to be consumed with negative emotion. And that's all it takes. And both people have positive perspectives on it as well. I had a positive message of saying, hey, be careful how you speak to certain people. You don't know if you're talking to a kid. And he had a positive message on, hey, man, you need to do your best to try to win this game. I thought we were all trying to win this game. I don't want to lose this game. But we can be consumed by negative aspects and all of a sudden have a negative conversation for no reason. Because we weren't paying attention to our emotions and we weren't critical thinking at the same time. It can happen to any one of us. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this ever again. Because afterwards, I'm like, what? I've been wanting to do it one time, but I can't do it because I can't control my emotions to a level where even though I'm saying things, I'm saying, hey, be respectful, stuff like that. I'm saying it in an intimidating manner where it's like, hey, you really need to watch your mouth or I want to beat the shit out of you. I didn't say those words, but the almost the intent was still there. And I had to catch myself and bring myself back and be like, look, man, all I'm saying is you just gotta watch yourself, what you're saying on here. That's it. And it kind of kept going back on and stuff, whatever, whatnot. But I said what I said, and that was it. And then the funny thing is, this is how real the situation was too, because the other person on the team, towards at the end of the game, he started getting on and saying, "Hey, what y'all talking about? Yeah, man, my son is just on, so y'all gotta watch y'all mouth." I was like, exactly what I'm talking about. And as I'm telling the kid, the guy, whatever, he actually ended up being 22. Cause I asked him how old he was later on. He's like, "I'm 22," which I kind of figured he was, because he said, "I know you at least 22." He's saying, "I know you at least my age." He was just law correspondence. He just was comparing everything to himself. Nothing made sense unless you put it in relative terms to himself. So he's saying, "Hey, it's this time of the day. You probably at least as old as me." Because I actually don't know what time of the day it was. I'm pretty sure it was like around 2 o'clock. I'm still thinking my kids wouldn't be home right now, but it also, I think it was spring. I think it was last week on spring break, anyways. So they were out of school. They just weren't with me. But it's that easy to become a toxic person, man. It's that easy to become uh to be involved in a toxic situation. That's easy to get consumed by something just because you don't stop to think. We cannot allow our emotions to control us. We cannot not allow our emotions to rule us, because guess what? Those in so-called that are in the powers that be, in the position of power, whatever you want to say, they are using emotions to manipulate us. And that's exactly what a toxic person does. So the most toxic people you know are the United States government. There you go. Oh man, I'm done. I'm gonna wrap it up, man, because you gotta kind of analyze what I'm saying. This might take a couple times to listen to, because it might seem like I'm all over the place, but and I probably am, but pay attention to what I'm saying. It makes sense, man. It makes sense. It makes sense, because I cannot explain it in a way unless it makes sense to myself first. Anytime I say anything, I have to make it make sense to myself first. Now, can you see it from my perspective? Who knows? Who knows? I do my best to try to explain it, but it is what it is, man. As always, check out the live stream, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Unless I decide not to do the show because I got something else going on in my personal life, I'll send out a tweet, or I'll put out a post on Gab. You go to my website, blog site, where you want to call it, Damian Jackson, Damien Jackson22.com. You look up in the top right hand corner, somewhere around there, you'll see a menu button or something like that, and you'll see something that says social media podcast link. Click on that. That's where you can find me on social media, Twitter, Gab, Parler. I had Parler. They don't exist no more. Got a Minds account. I don't really interact or do anything on the Minds account anyways, but I'm there if you're on that platform. Check out my YouTube, my Odyssey channel, the Underdog podcast, stuff like that. You have the links to all the where you can listen to the podcast, the audio version, where it's Podbean, Apple Podcast, Spotify. I think I put up the link for iHeartRadio. Maybe I didn't. I can't remember or not. I don't think I did. I probably need to do that. But tons of different ways you can listen to the podcast, and then you have the video version upload immediately after I get done recording the podcast. So the video version will be uploaded on YouTube and Odyssey. Go ahead and check those things out. If you want to support me, the channel, the content in which I create and stuff like that, I prefer no donations. Go ahead and buy a shirt. Although that seems a little bit more expensive when you think about it sometimes, but hey, I guess you could donate on, yeah. I guess if you do want to donate, check out a live stream, get in D Live, because in D Live I actually can reward people back with donations in a live stream. There's different ways where I can find a way, because everyone that gives me something, if you give me something, I gotta give something back. Law of generation: you give, you receive. You receive, you give. Always transference of energy, right? That's how you gotta look at it. So, but if you want to support me, so maybe like some of the shirts and products that I created or whatever, stuff like that, check out underdogproductstore.com. Underdogproductstore.com. Check that out. You can see some different things, whatever. If you like it, make a purchase. And if you don't like it, you just want to get something to just kind of help support the content, the brand in which I'm creating, go ahead and buy some, make a purchase. I got a shirt. I think I got I don't know if I don't think it was a premium cotton. I think it was like the next level above like the regular cotton shirt or something like that. Fits well. I got a medium. I'm a small guy. I'm an average size. I'm a small guy. Average size. I think average size is like 6 foot. I'm like 5'8" with shoes on, 143. So probably more on a small guy. Maybe I am average. I don't even know anymore. But anyways, that's how you can help out or support or just buy something for yourself. Shit, I don't know. As always, though, man, you guys enjoy your day. Have a good time. Enjoy time with family and friends. Spread positivity. Accept that there are negativity out there in the world. Pay attention to it. Try to be positive. If anything, find a middle balance. Find a middle way. All that good shit. Everything that I need to say. So until next time.